TLDR, I was looking into BSFC as a terrible company, but with great potential for huge gains because the stock valuation was so cheap. So I actually did buy some stock at around 0.3 cents per share. That's right, not 3 cents, but 0.3 cents. So this stock isn't even worth 1 penny. But as I dug into this company more and more, I realized I overlooked its dire cash and liquidity position. Now I'm afraid that I'm just going to lose all my money because the company is probably going to go bankrupt in the near term. But that's okay because I only put a small amount of money in this stock. And who knows, maybe the company will survive somehow. The stock will moon, and I may yet make my 100x. My Tiny Stocks Research Substack subscribers receive my analysis of BSFC prior to the publishing of this video, and may also have taken positions of their own. Although, in this particular case for BSFC, my analysis is so negative that my Substack subscribers probably didn't take any positions. So, in my full analysis of BSFC here, I'm going to first explain why I messed up and regret buying the stock. I think there's still a chance it could go up a lot and moon to 100x, but I think that probability is small, and the expected value of my investment is probably negative. So, my original thesis was that this was a terrible company in a terrible industry, but that the stock valuation was so absurdly cheap that this could be a great stock investment. For deep value stocks, they're generally a great investment as long as the company isn't fake or a scam. However, I overlooked a key precondition, which is that you need to avoid companies that are running out of cash in the near term with seemingly no options to borrow or raise more money. This seems to be the case for BSFC. BSFC currently has virtually no money per their Q3 2025 balance sheet. The company literally has only $87,770 of cash left. In some situations, this might be okay if the company had a lot of inventory to sell, or perhaps a large amount of accounts receivables. But the issue for BSFC is that these current assets are dwarfed by their current liabilities of accounts payable, accrued expenses, and accrued compensation. So basically, it seems like the company has no source of cash to pay for operating expenses from its current operations and balance sheet. Normally, when the company can't get money from its normal course of business, they borrow money or raise equity capital. It looks like BSFC, they tried to do exactly this, filing an 8K to massively increase the number of common equity shares outstanding, presumably in preparation for an equity capital raise. But on December 5th, 2025, the company filed with the SEC to withdraw its amendment to increase the shares outstanding. Now, this withdrawal could mean a number of things. For example, it could be that the company can't find buyers for their new equity issuance, or it could be that they have found alternative sources of financing. But, I doubt anyone wants to put fresh equity into this business, and I don't even know how you would raise equity when your share price is trading at less than 1 cent per share. As far as borrowing more money, I don't see anything in BSFC's filings or balance sheet that would suggest that they have assets to attract more debt financing beyond the debt they already have. Of course, I could be wrong, and there could always be surprises to the upside. This is one of the good things about distressed equities investing, which is that many times you can get upside surprises. Unknowns and surprises are generally bad things in investing. But when it comes to distressed equities investing, they could be good. Okay, so now that you know what happened with my analysis and investment overall and where I went wrong, let me just explain my original thesis of why BSFC was a real company and why its valuation was absurdly cheap. Let's start with the company's leadership and owners. The key individual behind BSFC is John Keeler. He's the largest owner, founder, and CEO of the company. Apparently, he's owned or worked on BSFC since 1995, so that's over 30 years. Like the fact that he's worked on this business and owned this business for that long is a good fact pattern, as he lists Harvard Business School on his LinkedIn, but I'm pretty sure it's one of those certificates or continuing ed programs that doesn't mean much. I couldn't really find anything negative about him. He just seems like a random guy who founded a seafood company. By the way, BSFC stands for Blue Star Food Corporation, and the company is basically a distributor of crab meat and other seafood products. Now, let's move on from John Keeler and look at the other owners. Regarding the other owners, it's very curious that there are no significant institutional owners, at least not ones that own above 5% of equity. Do you know why? It's because there used to be institutional investors who owned above 5%, but they've lost so much money and puked up so many shares that they no longer own 5%. For example, Lynn Partners was such an institutional investor who seems to have suffered this fate. There isn't much info on Lynn Partners and its founder, Jeff Easton. They just seem like a random small fund. As far as individuals, aside from founder John Keeler, that the only other person worth mentioning is Jeff Guzzi. Guzzi is a board member and owns about 7% of BSFC. There's not much information on this guy except that he is associated with various random microcap stocks that don't seem to be doing very well or even be operating anymore. So in all, no, not the greatest set of fact pattern for weeding out scams as far as ownership is concerned, but not terrible either. So let's look at some other factors that speak to whether or not this company is fake or a scam. BSFC has supposedly been around for 30 plus years, so that's good. On its website, it lists major retail stores that carry its product, including Walmart, Costco, and Restaurant Depot. It also lists all of its brands, such as Pacifica, Little Cedar Falls, and the Blue Star brand itself. I did find some evidence that these brands are indeed being sold in these prominent retailers and other places, but it's not an overwhelming amount of evidence, or not as much channel checks and confirmation as I wanted. And actually, funnily enough, I think the greatest evidence of BSFC being a real company was the fact that it was sued by Red Lobster. So basically, BSFC was contracted by Red Lobster to supply crab meat. Red Lobster then sued BSFC for failure to deliver the crab meat. I believe the lawsuit is now over, or at least halted, because Red Lobster went bankrupt. So while it wasn't good that BSFC was sued by Red Lobster for failure to supply crab meat, the fact that BSFC was contracted by Red Lobster, a national restaurant chain, as a supplier of crab meat proves that BSFC was a legit player in the seafood supplier space. As far as peak revenue, I believe BSFC had revenue of $36 million back in 2017. So again, it was a sizable, legit company. I think peak market cap was about $150 million, but I'm not 100% sure about this number because it's hard to calculate market cap with all the stock reverse splits. A valuation of $150 million in equity is obviously more than 100x BSFC's current market cap of less than $200,000. Of course, the current BSFC isn't the same company as the one that was worth $150 million a few years ago. So first, the annual revenue of BSFC currently is $3 million, not $36 million. So worse yet, in 2024, the company had negative gross profit, which is terrible. Basically, companies should never have negative gross profit unless you're a company in the agriculture and commodities sector and you're doing horribly, which precisely describes BSFC's current state. And as far as what exactly went wrong with the company, Seafood Source, a specialty seafood news publication, did an extensive article on BSFC back in October 2024. The article almost seems like a hit piece, but it does a good job of summarizing what happened. And the short summary is that BSFC has been plagued by failed acquisitions, lawsuits with multiple parties, massive stock dilutions, and the resignation of its former CFO. But still, despite all this negative news and events, the enterprise of this company shouldn't be worth nearly $0, as this was a company that was worth $150 million a few years ago. I'm assuming John Keeler, the CEO, isn't a professional scammer, and that in his 30 plus years in the seafood business, he must have done something right and must have valuable expertise, which could hopefully be used to turn around BSFC in its current situation. The current enterprise value of BSFC is around $1 million, with equity value less than $200,000, which is absurdly cheap. If equity value recovers to $2 million, you would more than 10 times your investment. If it ever recovers to $20 million, you would 100 times your investment. So yeah, I'm really hoping that John Keeler does something, anything, to turn around this business. John, if you're seeing this, please help the shareholders and do something. This is your business and your legacy. Keep fighting and don't give up. Don't let this business fail.